Good morning, people. Welcome to Success Tree classes. Well, we are starting now Newspaper Manthan video lecture series. In this video lecture series of Newspaper Manthan, we'll cover current affair analysis, means analysis of the newspapers, the important newspapers, and important articles in them. For example, Hindu, Indian Express, Business Standard, Mint, these kind of the papers will cover. Moreover, we'll do Yojana Economic Survey in India Yearbook of next year.
Yes. So read the statement of the question again. More than the state, the attitude of the society needs to change to look at women in more respectful way. Do you agree? Examine. So first statement gives you the certain situation. Then it asks you to give your opinion. Whether do you agree with this statement or not, and examine accordingly. In a straightforward way, you could write yes or no, but this is not the correct way to write any of these answers. So if you see even if the first statement, some of you have justified whether society's role is more important, state's role also. So ultimately, this answer should include both society, mindset, attitude of the society, as well as state's role. Both have to be looked into. Then you need to interlink how society's role is interlinked with the state's role. Right? How do you compare actually? How society's role is more important than the state's role, isn't it? Then you need to interlink this phenomena as well. So if you see, the one part of this question can be devoted to answer state's role and society's role. How state's role and society's role are interlinked to each other, right? Though definitely state's role is important by bringing laws, and even the laws and legislations, the program policies, they shape the mindset and attitude of the people, of the society also, right, over a period of time. But at the same time, the state means the institutions of state. These are manned by the people, and these people come from where? Again, from society, right? So even the state's response to any kind of these institutions depends upon the attitude of the society. So state's response is a reflection of the society's attitude, in fact. As we had seen in this New Year incident, mass molestation incident, how the state authorities responded. Initially they denied, then certain responsible state authority figure, the one of the minister, right? So initially they tried to justify by questioning the morality of the women themselves, that they were following the Western culture, the clothes were not appropriate, not the appropriate timing to go out in night. So instead of taking the responsibility and doing the adequate measures, they were trying to question the women themselves. Now, how this kind of state response is there? Because of the patriarchal attitude, patriarchal mindset of the society itself. Right? So both state and society, they are interlinked. First, this question demands how you interlink them. You just showcase this interlinkage. Then you write about state's role. Yes, state's role has been important. If you remember certain initiatives by the government or by the state, then mention those. Then you take them separately. What has been the initiatives, challenges, what can be looked forward. Same way, the society, the role of society in detail, because more focus has to be given on society's role. Because ultimately it is the mindset problem, it is the attitude issue that has to be looked into. Focus over these. And finally, in the last part, you can answer the question, do you agree with this or not? How do you agree? In one way, you could say yes, state's role and society's role are complementary and supplementary to each other. Both are important, but definitely society role become more important as states people they also come from the society. In this way, you can take your stand and finally conclude your answer. So it means what? In this question, if you miss any of the part, you're going to miss certain marks. Whether 2, 3, 4, 5 depends upon how beautifully you explain the rest of the portion. So the prime requirement of any of the question is what? You first understand all the different dimensions of the question. What all has been asked, what all is demanded in the question. If you can just articulate these 3, 4 parts, then you can generate many more points within the parts. That won't be a big deal over it because you're reading the GS general studies over a period of time, so you have certain points in your mind. You can write over that. In states, you could list certain initiatives by the state, by the government, specifically after Nirbhaya case. Right, Justice Verma Committee recommendations they were brought. Criminal Procedure Amendment Act was brought by the Parliament, and it, in fact, uh, increased the imprisonment, increased the punishment in these women-related crimes.
And some modifications in the juvenile.
Yes, Juvenile Justice Act, right?
Draft new women policy.
Even in the Criminal Procedure Act, Amendment Act, there new kind of the women-related offences were introduced, like stalking, wearing, right? Juvenile Justice Act you mentioned. There are many more initiatives that you could write. For example, 1/3 proportion in the UT police. In the UT police, 1/3 representation has to be a woman. Special battalion in CRPF, women battalion in CRPF. There are many more initiatives regarding safety and security. Now this question doesn't limit itself to the safety and security only. See, what I'm talking to you, that is CRPF has done it. Special battalion. Okay. This question doesn't limit itself to safety and security. It is all about the mindset. It is about the gender equality in general. So there are many more points you can write, but keeping or the limit of the time and space both.
How can we end the answer? The conclusion.
I'll just come to one by one. Okay. We first discuss the question, then we come to it. So understand first, discuss about what are the initiatives by the state in the points, whatever you write. Then other gender equality aspects. You can write about gender busting as well in one of the point. Definitely. What is gender busting? Yes. What is your name? Sorry? Tayyab. बताइए gender busting क्या होता है?
There are two portions, part A, part B. In part A, all the schemes that are gender sensitive towards women, you are going to have 100% allocation, and in part B, 30-70 ratio. You have specification. There are two parts. Part A, all the women related.
Keep on saying.
We started in 2005.
Okay, this question appeared this year mains. Okay, when you talk about gender busting, start in the simple terms so that you can make the examiner understand about it. Gender busting is what? Is to bring the gender concern in all the busting, all the scheme formulation exercises. This is gender busting, so that the benefit of every busting exercise reaches to women as reach to men. It means what? Bringing gender equality in the busting process. एक लेमन भाषा में समझाओ उसको क्या है क्या जेंडर बस्टिंग व्हाट यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट दिस इज द टेक्निकलिटीज ऑफ द जेंडर बस्टिंग सो नेवर स्टार्ट विद द टेक्निकलिटीज if the question specifically asks about gender busting, start with what gender busting actually is, what it intends to do, then you can write about technicalities, whatever the information you have. So understand gender busting. Whenever busting happens, bringing gender concern, women concern, while the busting is doing on. You bring the allocation, you make out so many scheme, programs, policies, so ensure the benefit reaches to women as well as the same way they reach to men. To ensure gender equality in the busting exercise, to ensure gender justice is delivered. So this is gender busting. It is not a separate busting tool. Mind, it is not a separate busting technique. Whatever the government uses, PPBS, outcome busting, whatever it is using, this is just to bring gender concern in the existing busting exercise. So यहाँ पर इतना explain नहीं करना because this question doesn't demand. Just write in a single one point form, right? Because we are concerned about gender equality on a larger platform as well, right? So state's role as an overall. Then you see in these kind of incidents, what actually happened? State law enforcement agency to the police in the safety and security whenever these cases incident happens. So generally in this case as well, the victims, they were hesitant to come forward. We had seen in they were in many of the other cases as well. It happens a lot. Many times the women victims, they have apprehension, they fear to come forward to lodge the complaint even. Why?
Because of the insensitivity showed by the police, because of lack of the proper training module.
One thing is failure on the part of state. They have the fear, they have the apprehension there. In fact, they lack the faith in the system. It has been seen that the police personnel, they ask very insensitive questions to the women, why they were out, right? Means even questioning their morality, in fact. So their faith in the police system and the criminal justice system is very low. Why it is so? Again, why? Because it's a mindset problem. Because these people, they're part of this patriarchal, male-dominated society. Second problem is the social stigma attached to it. They fear that they won't be acceptable in the society. So it is failure from the society part as well. So why don't they come forward? State failure, society is failure. On part of state, for example, if you say, though in the last year the cases of women-related offense, they have increased, but the conviction rate is very low. Right? When any crime happens and conviction is very low, moreover, there is delay in the conviction rate, there is delay in the judicial process, huge delay. As we know, justice delayed is justice denied. Right? So low conviction rate, delay in the process, delay in the justice delivery system, actually reduces the deterrence of the law. Whenever any punishment is attached to any of the crime, as per law, it is supposed to deter the criminals. But the deterrence get reduced because of these issues. Secondly, when these delays happens, it not only reduces the deterrence, it also reduces the faith of the people as well in the system. It reduces the legitimacy of the system. So in the state's part, there are so many things to write. You can write accordingly, just looking over the various factors. Then write various points how to, in every question, though this question doesn't ask you to write the way forward, what the solution could be, but I will suggest in each and every question, write it. I had been talking many times before. Why I say again and again, so that this thing get ingrained in your mind. You write the solution part, you write the way forward part. It helps to gain that extra 1 mark. 1 mark in each question, 20 questions in an exam, 20 marks in a paper. 20 marks, a huge difference. 100 to 120 you can make, 80 to 100 you can make. And if this happens in all the 4 papers, 80 marks difference you can create. Now see the 80 marks difference, either in or out, or if you are in, just you are in top 100. Even this difference can be made. So have a proper structure, introduction, what is being asked in the question, even write what is not being asked as well, which are critical to the answer to fetch the marks. Regarding society part, a lot of things you can write about it. Society, basically patriarchal society we live in, and the same thing gets carried forward in the various institutions as well, this kind of discrimination. How this attitude can be changed, how this mindset can be changed. First you discuss the role of society, how this is the attitude of society actually, right, which needs to be changed to look women in a more respectful way. Then you discuss what can be done, how it can be improved. There are common points whenever you talk about changing the mindset, right? There's no rocket science in this. You can write these points anywhere where you feel like. कैसे आप mindset change कर सकते हैं? Yes, come with the points. You people have the points with you.
A good socialization of child from the family situations.
Yes, good socialization.
Gender education.
Education, awareness, sensitization. Sensitization of the people in general, of the people at the helm of powers in the policy making, right? Socialization at the family level, right? Education from the school level itself. Bring gender equality from the school level. Make the curriculum gender equal. Even in the curriculum you see the examples. In the examples also you find a woman always cooking the food. In the school curriculum I'm talking about, right? Why not a man can do the household work as per example say? So from the starting itself, these kind of the examples, they make the child feel like what kind of the work is for what sex. So division of labor on the basis of sex actually gets ingrained in this level. And a child grows up, sees the domestic violence within the family, sees this kind of discrimination in the society. In this environment, if one grooms, so what kind of the person he would be? And the same person gets into the police or certain law enforcement agency. So these kind of the apathy comes into the system. Then take a stand as conclusion, you say conclusion or whatever. So the conclusion can be made in the way it asks, do you agree or not? So in the same way, whether you can a diplomatic stand or you can specifically talk about society's role more as well. So both are justifiable, but I will suggest go for society's role more. It also depends upon in which paper this question has been asked. If it is asked in GS paper 1, then definitely take the conclusion in which society's role is focused more, right? In paper 2 you can take a balanced stand as well accordingly. In the article linked to it, you might have got certain handouts. Now discuss the article along with this. This article is about what's the heading of article? Making our cities safe for women. So gives the context of this issue. The context is New Year Eve molestation, mass molestation of women, and how the state's response has been on this. Even a case study can be asked. You can be made an SP of the region, of the district in which this incident happens, and situation can be given to you. The same situation can be given to you. In one instance, the victims don't come forward, then what will be your response? In another instance, victim come forward but pressure from the seniors or from the politicians, then what will be your response? Right? So it tests your decision making. So think over for a moment, right? Then you can discuss in the class as well. That now both the circumstances are different. If the victim they don't come forward, then the whole strategy will be different, right? In another instance, they come forward, but you're not able to take the appropriate action because of pressure from the seniors and from the ministers, right? So just after the class, or you just think over it, then you can discuss. Okay. The context, you understand what the context has been. Then after this incident happened, initially the state were in the denial phase, then later on, just a bit after it, they accepted this thing happened. But actually, even the minister's statement, you see how insensitive the statement was. It tried to justify the molestation, isn't it? It questioned the Western culture being adopted by the girls in India, questioned the timings of the event, night timing, why they were out like this. So it showcase again in what kind of the culture, in what kind of the mindset, what kind of society we are living into, because even the ministers, the police officials, we are all part of society. They go from this crowd only. Then this article further discuss about police as a separate. In the police system, we discuss about the state's role. The same discussion would follow here. So police role is highly important because they are the first to respond. They are the one whom the victim will approach first. If they are not citizen friendly, so it will in fact reduce the faith of the people in the police machinery, police functioning. Already the uh, you can say the image of police is very derogatory, is very in fact apathetic towards the people kind of image, right? So it will further strengthen that image and would further create. Another thing is, okay, what could be done, how the police citizen interface can be improved? Then there are so many other points you can write. Yes, बताइए.
Neighborhood scheme.
Yes.
Neighborhoods.
Explain Vijay so that everybody can understand, each of your classmates.
Recent past, many of the police institutions like Karnataka police and Delhi police especially have taken this scheme known as neighborhood policing, whereas in resident welfare association known as RWAs, especially the older people are told to have a watch because they are ultimately the watchmen. So taking this clue, the police tells them to have some information about who comes in the colonies, who
So kind
goes out the
of
colony.
community policing it is. Yes, what else can be done? Come with the points, you have the points with you. Even if I tell you, you know those points. How to make police more citizen friendly or this interface more friendly, citizen
There are
centric?
no number of women included in the police force.
Yes, good point. More women personnel.
Technology can be included
Yes.
in the recent application launched by
Correct.
Haryana,
Himmat app is there.
Haryana has gone for Mahila Thanas in each district.
Very good. Yes.
So it can be replicated in
Mahila
all states.
Thanas, Himmat application, right? More transparency in the police system. Online FIRs. Just how online FIRs and even all the FIRs which are to be on the record has to be made online as per the Supreme Court order within 24 hours. Last year, judgment came of Supreme Court to make all the FIRs to be online.
Yes, within 24 hours.
Then you can talk about police reform as well. Prakash Kadam case. There are many points in that. Once we talk specifically about police reform, then we discuss all the 7 points. There are 7 points, I think, in the Prakash Kadam case. then a virtual police station, VPS has been formed by one of the organization. What is that? It is just to make the people more uh, awareness, knowledge about how the police functioning is. Virtual police station is a kind of virtual thing. Online it is, you can see it, and it will tell you each and every stage. First stage, whom should you meet? What should be the exact procedure? What after that? In what cases the police can arrest? What all are the procedures? What all situations are whenever you go to a police station? So you give more knowledge to people, citizens, you empower them. Once you empower the people, ultimately you put accountability on the police system. So one thing is, whenever we talk about police reforms, one thing is to talk about giving them police more autonomy or giving them out of the politician pressure, right? Another thing, you put more accountability on them. So both things are required. Keeping them away from the political pressure. Secondly, more accountability, more transparency in the police system. And very important point is about criminal justice reforms. The whole criminal justice system in India is highly regressive. In what sense? Okay, what all become part of the criminal justice system? Means, what do you understand by the criminal justice system? What all comes in this? Yes, बताइए क्या करें?
All the law enforcement agencies,
Hmm.
laws, teachers.
What are the stages in those? Say, for example, any crime happens, or if the police feel the crime has happened and one is the accused.
First is the FIR.
So, in the first stage is a police interface where the FIR is launched. Right. Secondly, prosecution stage in the courts where charge sheet is framed. Third is the prison where the convict will be punished. So when we talk about criminal justice system reform, talk of these three stages reforms. And there can be separate points. Now you can generate many more points. How to bring reform in the police system. The first interface is the police only, where FIR is launched. Second stage is in the courts, where charges are framed. The courts, so many pendencies, so many delays, right? So many obsolete laws as well, so many loopholes in the laws as well. There are many, even the public prosecutor is find how the prosecution works on, right? It is not the victim centric, our system. Victim, we just forget about the victim in the system. Then finally the condition of the prisons as well. How overcrowded prisons, highly overcrowded, and many of these people, the inmates, prison inmates, these are not able to get the bail only, right? Because of not sufficient money, you're not able to produce any witness like these. And even if they have just spent more than half of the period or the full period as well, still they were found to be in the prison of whatever the maximum punishment could have been as per conviction, right? And we find how in the prison the mafias or the big politicians, they live the life they live. So even what the prison should be to reform the prisoners. Now this is the basic purpose of a prison. Now these kind of conditions actually make the prisoner, because it is not necessary every prisoner is a convict. He may be under trial. Now maximum people are under trials who are in the prisons and may be set out free as well by the court instead of being convicted. We had seen the suicides as well within the prison because of the condition. So in these, I'm just being diverted from the main topic, but this is how to deal with. You just break the main portion into different parts, right? Then you discuss the different points on that. And you will come back to this article. This article further discuss about. So one role is of one stakeholder is state. In the state as being stakeholder, police is a part. Law enforcement agencies are a part to make the public space safe and secure for everybody, including women. Secondly, public space. Secondly, it is not only police only, law enforcement agencies. We need to make the public space, the public transportation, every public space to be gender equal, should be inclusive. We find the public space to be highly exploitative to women. Public transportation, you see in the buses, in the metros, in the various public transportation, safety concerns remains there for women. So it becomes duty of state to provide gender inclusive public space. So whose role becomes important here? Which authority? Yes. Yes, at the planning stage, ministry, you talk about the municipality level as well. Because urban local bodies are the core implementation authorities at the local level. At the policy planning level, ministries are there. Local level, urban local bodies are there. Because any of the scheme is to be implemented from where? From the local ground level. The public transportation to be held by the state department, transport department. So role of state here as well. So the market, any public space, the transportation, not only gender inclusive but also to be safe for women, for disabled, for children, for old age, for every disadvantaged section of society, the public space and public transportation should be inclusive. So urban planning becomes important in this, and same way urban implementation. CCTV cameras, how CCTV cameras help? They help in the scientific investigation of any of the crime. Because even this Bangalore incident, this the accused, they were culprit, they were identified because of CCTV images only, right? So they also help in the scientific investigation. Same we just talked about public transport, we have discussed it. Society's culture, right? When changing the mindset, we also talk about civil society involvement. So not only the role of state, the civil society has very eminent role here. So yes, any NGO, name of NGO for women empowerment. Seva, good example. Self-employed women association. So write example. Try to give example. One way is you write civil society involvement. Then you say, for example, Seva. Now this happens for each and every case. Means this is woman issue. If some other issue comes, because civil society involvement is a universal point. कुछ नहीं ध्यान आ रहा है, it is linked to it, civil society, right? एक पॉइंट ऐड करा रहे हैं आपका हर एक क्वेश्चन के अंदर. तो in many of the questions, in many of the answers, you'll write involvement of civil society. Even it can be part of your decision making in ethics as well, because many of the questions they demand change of mindset. If you see the last year case studies, we'll discuss once if it comes to us. So what I mean to say, एक पॉइंट आपका यूनिवर्सल पॉइंट हो जाता है. वन वे इज टू राइट सिविल सोसाइटी इन्वॉल्वमेंट. Then another way is give example of that particular NGO linked to that issue, linked to that particular field. Women Seva. Disabled, yes Rohit. Disabled, NGO for disabled, any one NGO that you remember. Enable Academy. Enable Academy is an NGO that is working on the skilling the disabled people. For bride trafficking happening in Haryana, Punjab. Empower People. Empower People is an NGO working in bride trafficking. Empower people. For old age, Help Age India and Age Well Foundation. These are two NGOs which remain in news prominently. Nanni Kali for child, girl child education. Goonj is one. Yes. Correct. Goonj is one you might have heard many times. Then Safai Karamchari Andolan, Bijwada Wilson, the person who is given Maxis Award last year. So that is linked to manual scavengers, untouchability. Then one is Daisy India Forum. Daisy India for the distribution of materials, the printed materials that is accessible to disabled, visually impaired and print disabled people as well. DAISY. Now you'll find all these information we have. We prepare notes from OneNote. On OneNote we make the notes. In the polity and governance section, there is one is the section is polity and governance. Go to NGOs, civil society, you find all the information there. All the different NGOs, their names and what they work. So mention the name. If you have specific name, mention that. We can now come to the next question. Next question is India, Africa. India and African nations have a history of cordial relations. Discuss the potential of partnership between India and various African countries. Also throw light on the challenges that India could face in strengthening this partnership. Yes, who has written this answer? Padilla, read your answer.
First of all, I'll talk about potential. India and Africa are young demographically and as a political unit. 1/3 of world's youth reside in these subcontinents. While India is a young nation, the process of democratization is still in infancy. African states both can learn from each other. Economically, India is one of the fastest developing countries around the globe. While Africa needs huge investment in its resource development for its economies to pick up, many Indian companies like Vedanta, Airtel have a huge presence in Africa. Farmers of Haryana and Punjab are renting and leasing huge tracts of land across Africa and contributing to economic development. Culturally, both are connected as we have been colonized by imperial powers in near past, and we both have fought our ways in unshackling the colonial chain. Strategically, the littoral states around Indian Ocean provide India with an option in securing stability in the Indian Ocean region. Indian defense establishment too can potentially contribute to securing fragile conditions across its African subcontinent. In recently had third Indo-Africa summit in New Delhi, India has made it loud and clear about its intentions in issues around which both units consider important for mutual interest like maritime security, human resource development, infrastructure and line of credit. Now challenges is racial discrimination, China as a challenge and African person unity as a challenge.
Very good points. Excellent points you have brought into. So you came when discussion was going on.
No, I have done.
But you came at the time, right? Anybody else? Well, what's the context of this question? What were the different parts of this question? He has framed in a very good way. The statement says India and Africa have a history of cordial relations. Discuss the potential of partnership between India and various African countries. So you could in the introduction part you could say discuss about history, how the correlation of India and Africa they had been, right? So historical cultural perspective can come since the time of colonization India Africa, then how Nehru's policy, Africa policy during INC period, then so that could come Gandhi Mandela era, right? Anti-apartheid regime. So all these things could come in the just introductory part. That's it. Then the main core of the question to ask is potential of partnership. So potential in what way India-Africa relation, how potential they are, and various African countries. So you should have specifically one thing is an overall you can talk African continent as a whole potential and how different countries specifically as well. Like South Africa presently we are having the maximum economic engagements and other engagements with South Africa, right? As we also being part of the BRICS, IBSA, and also we trying to get into NSG, South Africa being member of NSG. So there are various other regions as well why we have maximum engagement with South Africa, but now we are diversifying as well. Other countries also, Nigeria, right? Recently, Kenyan head of the government has come to India, right? Last year, our president, vice president, our prime minister went to the visit to African countries. So our prime minister went to various countries during that time, right? So which countries did he went? Last, these were
In July 2006.
Mozambique, Kenya, right? Then Tanzania and South Africa. And now in the Vibrant Gujarat Summit, Kenyan head of this government came, and now the summit also happened between India and Kenya along with. Now it started over, you could say, after. Now can you see a difference in the push to Africa as part of the foreign policy after this government came? Definitely, there has been many changes in the stance in the foreign policy. One is with respect to Africa, how our foreign policy now sees Africa in its framework. Post with the new government came into power, Indo-African summit that happened that India hosted in 2015, October 2015, 15 year. Indian African Summit happened in October 2015.
India Africa Summit.
Yes.
It is
15 the time.
it's
Yes.
different from India Africa Forum.
That is same. India Africa Forum Summit happened in October 2015. That's why the question was asked in December mains 2015. The question appeared in 2015 mains exam, India Africa relations. Then in 2016 these visits happened. The visit of president, vice president, visit of our prime minister. And in 2017 the visit is reciprocated by the Kenyan head of the government. Now this is how the political push is given with regard to Africa as part of our foreign policy. So, like we could discuss this question along with the article we discussed. You come to the handout. Reaching out to Africa, the background we have discussed, the context. Then there is East African Community. I think the second last article, just see through it. Topic name is Reaching Out to Africa. So, future of East African community. Just first see the countries that are in East African community, locate them in the map. Open your atlas. Have you wrote the atlas? Open your atlas and locate. Carry atlas always whenever you come to class. Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and South Sudan. Because one question is going to come from the mapping in prelims, right? And this is how they don't ask from isolation. The question, the geography mapping question as well, they have certain relevance with respect to any of the international relation news. That's why they pick up certain name of the place. Whenever they ask to arrange north to south, east to west, whatever the way, they have certain relevance in the current. Moreover, to understand IR, it also good to have the geographical knowledge of the various regions, because geography is very eminent part of the political as well as strategic areas of our international relations. Locate these countries: Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and South Sudan. These are part of what? East Asia Summit. Now in this East African community, in the East African community, the Kenya and Tanzania, they are traditional rivals, right? And Kenya, it has got good relations with other countries like Uganda, Rwanda, and Burundi, and they formed coalition of the willing. This is how Kenya. Now, what India can play the role? Well, India is having good relations with all of these countries, so it can bring the mutual interest on the forefront, can bring more cooperation and collaboration within the East African community, within the members and between India and East African community as well. Then this article further discuss about potential of India-Kenya partnership regarding economic cooperation, bilateral trade, and various areas like energy, pharma, textile, agriculture, line of credit, the health, education. Finally, talks about how India is to tackle the competition, or what kind of competition India is having among the Asian nations. Definitely China. China is the biggest competitor to India in Africa. Is having the more trade, more investment in Africa than India. Then finally it ends with that next summit with Africa scheduled to be 2018, but now it is to 2020. So it says we should bring more engagements before 2020 in 2018 as kind of the interministerial could be the one. Well, this article is quite narrow one in discussing India-Kenya relation only. Right. This demand of this question is to bring different perspective of different countries, how India's relation with them, and how potential they are for India. We'll discuss them. Okay, with the present policy, Indian foreign policy with regard to Africa, it seems now India is going for the political consolidation as well as expansion of the political push that is being seen from the Indian perspective. Second, in terms of economic engagement and trade level. Thirdly, in terms of development partnership, investment. Then it could be seen in terms of Indian Ocean security concern. Sorry?
Indian Ocean.
Yeah, Indian Ocean. So we are taking the engagement with the Indian Ocean littoral states, countries in the Africa. You could see the countries. If you see the last year when Modi visited 4 countries last year, which were those countries? South Africa, right? Mozambique, Kenya, Tanzania. All these 4 are coastal countries. So do you find certain significance of this? Yes. And before these, Modi had visited Seychelles and Mauritius. It showcased how India is trying to increase its influence in the Indian Ocean region.
In Djibouti,
To
there is military base of
sorry,
in Djibouti.
Djibouti, we are having very good relation with Djibouti, right? We have the base.
Military base.
I'm not sure about the military base, but we have good relation with Djibouti in terms that it helped us in the evacuation Operation Rahat, if you remember.
Yes.
From the Yemen, these people were taken to Djibouti. From Djibouti, then they were carried to India. So, India made a strategic relation with Mauritius, with Seychelles, right? The maritime cooperations. So, the idea is for India to be net security provider in the Indian Ocean region. So, we don't want to bring the situation to the level how South China Sea issue has emerged, when an independent sea part, ocean part, is being claimed by China, and the interests of the various countries and the small countries are not able to oppose it, are not able to oppose in a balanced manner, so that they could push Chinese claims, right? So now definitely it hurts India's interest as well. In terms of trade, now more than 55% of India's trade with Asia Pacific passes through South China Sea. Other interests as well, like ONGC Videsh Limited, to Vietnam oil we are going into, right? So India has always supported freedom of navigation and overflight in the international sea, international oceans. So why India is doing so in Indian Ocean, like with these small countries? We want to have better engagement, military engagement, strategic engagements, so that these kind of situation doesn't recur in Indian Ocean region. And India, because India is placed in a center location in the Indian Ocean. So we want to have our influence all across Indian Ocean and to be net security provider of the region. Then another vision could be seen in terms of people to people exchange, people to people contacts, cultural exchange as well between Indian and African. We find African students come here for study, or even scholarship our government provides. There are different ways how the engagements are there. Our business activities are happening a lot in Africa. Various companies like Airtel, Vedanta are working out in Tata's, right, working out in Africa. We discuss about their complementarities, how India-Africa interests are complementary to each other, or how these are. If you see Africa, how Africa is important to us, there are many points we have already discussed. Another important thing is Africa is resource-centric continent. Huge natural resources, very diverse. Now India is definitely in need of the resources. We are in the industrialization phase, so we need resources for industrialization. We need to diversify our energy resources. We are over dependent over geopolitically fragile Gulf region. So that's why we find we are diversifying to Nigeria, to Mozambique. We are diversifying our oil resources, oil imports. Then another thing is Africa. Whenever we talk about Africa, the image comes, okay, very poor, say LDC countries are those, but things are changing. Like we have to see the real what actually is happening there. Africa is also passing through the phase of industrialization. Like demographic transition it is passing through. Middle class is rising in Africa. Once middle class is rising in Africa, it means what? The purchasing power capacity is increasing. It means it can provide a very good market to India, to the Indian goods. So Africa can be not only be, should not be seen as a resource provided to India only, it should be seen in the way as market as well, right? As he has explained regarding agriculture, that how Indian agriculture, how our farmers or our people there, they buy the lands and the leasing and all in the contract farming. Now we have started a new trend there. What is the new trend? In the Mozambique, what we are doing? No, I'm talking about in the agriculture only. Instead of contract farming, instead of just doing, now India is engagement is in the enhancement of the capacity building, the financial as well as the technical capacity building of the farmers there, help in the production and do the buyback purchase agreement. Because land is very sensitive issue. You go out in another country, buy the land, it could create a anti-Indian sentiments as well very soon. Right? They could feel it as exploitative after a period of while. That's why many of the intellectuals that talk about neo-colonial policies going on in Africa. Right? So it is a very, now this kind of process is something that will enhance the capabilities of the African people. And it is more, you can say, the mutual interest, mutual benefits would be strengthened and would ensure high moral ground of India to be maintained. Then Africa can also be seen as a whole in terms of, though there are many countries, many small countries are there in Africa, and but every vote counts in UN. Right? When India is pushing for UN Security Council reform, so definitely these kind of engagement they help. They help in creating a positive environment among African nations, getting a support from there. And see, if you talk about India and China and Africa, how among them, if you see India and China separate, working in Africa, or looking over India as from the prism of China, working in Africa. So one of the argument is that we should not look how India is engaging with Africa from the prism of China, because kind of engagement is different. Chinese engagement is highly extractive, exploitative as well in many ways. Because in one of the case, China with Chinese investment that didn't result into the local creation of the employment. So with Zambia, the president that had anti-Chinese ran an anti-Chinese platform, because the Chinese investment that were creating jobs for Chinese people only, right? So it gave way for Vedanta's entry into the country. So it means what, whenever you see China, so kind of China's engagement in Africa to some extent, it gave India a way into the African inroads. Why? Because Chinese investment, Chinese working had not been so democratic. They had not been so based on the cooperation and collaboration. Even Sudan gave share in the oil field to India because they didn't want their oil field to be dominated by one country, China only. They wanted to diversify. So if you see India as a separately working in Africa, so we have a long tradition even when China wasn't so much engaged with Africa since the colonial past. Same background, we have Gandhiji learned the idea of satyagraha from South Africa only, right? So we had the longing, and then in the non-alignment movement, Nehru had the separate Africa policy. Even Gujarati traders, they had been engaged in trade with African nations, African countries since a long way back. But the kind of investment that India is doing now, it is post LPG era, post LPG reforms in India. Because we didn't have much money to invest in Africa before. Kind of money that India generated, that was happened post LPG. So in the 2000 and 2005-6, our investment increased in Africa. So that was the peak period when our investment started pushing into African nations. So kind of trade that we have with Africa in 14-15, it was around $70 billion trade. Now just try to compare the trade how India and China they're doing with Africa. So 70 billion trade, $70 billion trade. India Africa in 2014-15, and investment of around $35 billion in a decade. So how much trade? $70 billion. How much investment? Around $35 billion in a decade. Whereas China's trade, even just with sub-Saharan African countries, it was around $200 billion in the same year, 14-15. So compare $70 billion of India's trade with $200 billion of Chinese trade with the sub-Saharan African countries. Whereas over the same period of a decade, Chinese investment had been $180 billion. And India's investment was around $35 billion. So you could see the difference, manifold difference. Then once we move ahead of the resources, so we talked that Africa is a resource-centric continent, has huge resources, and provides vast opportunities to India as well to get resources for its industrialization. But now it's not resource-centric. What I mean to say, the investment, even the opportunities are being diversified in Africa. Now, even India's investment, the world over investment in Africa are in various other fields like financial services, education, health, telecom, hospitals. In the various different fields, the investment are. It has been found that world over investment, more than 50% it is in the financial services rather than in the resources. So it showcased the diversity. That's why even despite this oil crisis, right? Despite the oil crisis, there was huge fall in the prices of the commodities all across the world. I believe you are aware of this fact, right? Right? International oil prices have dipped down. The commodity prices world over, they have fallen. That's why Brazil economy is in crisis. Russian economy in crisis. Why? These are highly commodity oriented economies. Right? Are you with me on this point or not? But African nations are not facing the crisis. Why? Because they are not overwhelmingly dependent over the oil or other commodities. But Gulf countries are. So that's why they have been able to sustain themselves even during this commodity crisis period. Then certain challenge it talks about regarding one of the challenges, the racial attacks that he mentioned. What's your name?
Anil.
Anil. Sorry?
Anil.
So racial attacks we have seen in India against African nationalists, and generally what happens whenever these kind of attack happens, they are seen as attack against an African person. But Africa is not a one country, isn't it? There are various nations. Yes, I think 55 countries are there. Yeah, okay, whatever. So if it means against Congolese person, against Kenyan person, if anybody against anybody racial attack happens, it is seen as an attack against Africa, and in fact it is portrayed as against as African, because even people in India general, they don't discriminate against Kenyan or Congolese or other countries nation. So they African, right? So kind of racial mentality is this, isn't it? And attacks happens, and this brings sentiments against Indians as well, anti-Indian sentiment in Africa, in all the countries. Why? Because they are seen as an attack against racial attack against African person rather than a particular nationalist person, citizens. If this had been just against one citizen, against one nation, national citizens person, this impact could have been narrowed down. But now impact is huge. It hurts the sentiments, the business sentiments in Africa. Our business community is working, investing there. Their investment gets jeopardized because same kind of the violence protest could happen in Africa against our investment, right? There are many African students come here for the higher studies and all. So why is it so? Why so many racial attacks? Why many? Why so many? First of all, we don't accept these as racial attacks. The state authorities definitely, right? Because the tendency is not to term any attack as a racial attack. The first instance is this one, right? So why so many attacks, racial attacks here?
Various stereotypes attached to them. Like there were real incident happened near our locality that वो ऑटो में दो आए नाइजीरियंस और उसके पास छुट्टे नहीं थे, तो उसने बोला कि आप ऊपर आओ, ऑटो वाले को कि आप ऊपर आओ, हम आपको ऊपर छुट्टे देते हैं, ऊपर उसको काट के खाए.
Thing happens what, see, there are certain racial concern definitely, that's why these attacks happen, okay. And even certain time the politician, they also try to take the political mileage if it is time of the election. See how just after at the time of the Delhi election, Aam Aadmi Party and right, you remember certain incident happened linked to the, yes,
People prejudice that
yes, yes,
they are engaged in usually illegal
yes,
activities,
yes,
like drugs and those all.
yes, this happens also, but not to the it cannot be
Generalized.
right, it cannot be generalized in fact, yes.
Due to their anthropological features.
See, okay, justify your point first, then I will justify your point. How anthropological feature?
I mean, for their looks.
India is a diversified country. Okay, even the looks vary from region to region. You bring a person from North India to South India and then Northeast India, they will feel like from the different nations. Yeah, even the classroom itself you could see. Right. So now this is my argument as well for the same thing, that
And for the same reason, sir, the people from different regions of country are discriminated.
one thing is we are not able to appreciate the importance of Africa as a nation, as a continent. If the same person, despite the look, is from America, the same look, there are blacks in America as well, right? But the same person from US or states, then we feel like so much giving so much respect to the same person, isn't it? So the importance of the continent is very low in our mindset.
Poor.
Yes. So now this mindset has to be changed, because it's not the same. It's not the reality. In fact, now it's more of we need Africa. Africa is very important for us, and this thing needs to be articulated in the people's mindset as well. Because Africa is very important for India. If people understand this thing, the respect will start coming. Once we say we just need to uh, bring our philosophy of Atithi Devo Bhava in reality. We talk about Vasudev Kutumbakam and Atithi Devo Bhava. So we need to showcase this thing in reality. The tolerance level has to be improved. From different race, from different culture, different background, different religion, fine, but tolerance level has to be improved. So same thing again, education, awareness, the points that we discussed, how to change mindset, again the same common points. So educating people about Africa's importance to India, educating people about the tolerance, about the our culture, we call our culture is so great values, right? We talk about we respect all the religions, we respect all the culture. So inculcating these values in reality, in letter and spirit.
Organized cultural activities.
Yes, good point. Cultural exchanges, organizing them, and bringing more connectivity between India and Africa. Their connectivities are very limited to very few nations. We have direct flight connectivity. Yes.
Sagarmala project.
Yes, very good point. Through Sagarmala project is the port-led development, right? Mosam you say, right? Sagarmala is for the Indian port-led development. That doesn't talk about different nations, right?
So it will also increase the trade.
Yeah, that I understand. That's fine. Even the Mosam talks about the same thing, but Mosam is more relevant to be quoted. Now, once we work or put efforts to develop the tolerance level among Indian citizens for all the cultures, for African, for different cultures, it will also help a lot for India to grow as a nation, as together, as national integration. Why? Because India also there are huge diversity, right? Diversity in general sense tends to divide, but the tolerance level, acceptance level tends to integrate. So it can help a lot for the national integration purpose as well, for this objective also. With regard to agriculture, we discussed regarding the contract farming and how a new trend is getting started by building the capabilities and doing the buyback purchase agreements. So therefore pulse is highly important. Uh, India depends upon Myanmar to import pulses. And recently now see how pulses have become a commodity of a luxury in fact in the past. However, these are very prominent source of protein for a vegetarian person. But the prices have their rise even to 200 rupees, more than 200 rupees per kg for arad or these kind of pulses. The same thing we can diversify, and we had to resort to import from Australia, from Canada during that time. So investing here in the capabilities of the people in African nations can also help in building the nutritional security for our people, for our citizens. Even this is part of this our National Food Security Act as well. Right now, along with cereals, we also provide pulses. So the same thing can be argued here as well.
And so in such questions, conclusion, how conclusion can be made?
Okay, well, I'm not just giving the, I'm just discussing the article, okay? We are not supposed to write all these things in the question. Yeah, bataiye.
So previously, it was like saying, do you agree? So there we can conclude in our way. But here means it is just asking questions only. Also throw light and challenges and potential means.
And
So
throw light,
in such
yeah.
question, how to to
Conclude.
decide that we also have to give the conclusion in such questions.
Your question is regarding conclusion or the overall question?
Overall general question is कि how to decide where the conclusion should be made.
Where the conclusion should be made in the end only.
जैसे कि इस क्वेश्चन में डिसाइड कैसे करें कंक्लूजन देना है.
कंक्लूजन तो हर एक क्वेश्चन में देना है. कंक्लूजन हर एक क्वेश्चन में देना है. क्या देना ये क्वेश्चन हो सकता है आपका.
मतलब इसमें एंड कैसे करें वो अपने काम.
कंक्लूजन डोंट पुट सो मच माइंड ऑन कंक्लूजन. सीरियसली बता रहे हैं इतना. आई जस्ट टेल यू द एग्जाम रियलिटी. A balanced conclusion. Balanced conclusion. A positive conclusion. You try to give a positive way in the end. And don't devote so much time in conclusion as well. Only 2-3 line conclusion. ठीक है? Because you are writing so many things at the same go. And how this thing will develop? Write many more tests. More the tests you write, then you realize, yes, I can write conclusion without thinking much about it. Because you don't have much time to devote 1 minute time over conclusion. In 9 minutes, you have to complete the whole. You need to understand the question, frame the answer, write the whole question, whole answer. So conclusion लिखना है, that is necessity, mandatory. Time नहीं लगना चाहिए उसमें. कैसे होगा possible? Give test, maximum test. While giving conclusion, just read over the question once again. This is the one requirement. So that you write conclusion in the context only. समझ रहे हैं? Question को फिर से पढ़ लो एक बार. While giving conclusion, just have a glance look and give a positive conclusion. That's it. Move to next question. That's it. Where you give time over the core part of the question. You don't write conclusion, it can subtract certain marks. ठीक है? लेकिन लिख देंगे तो ऐसा नहीं कि आपको बहुत अच्छा कंक्लूजन लिख दिया तो कुछ बहुत ज्यादा कुछ होगा. It won't make much of the impact. बहुत ज्यादा impact नहीं पड़ने वाला है. Impact आपका पड़ेगा mainly core mark, content. Yeah, certain times student give really very beautiful conclusion. Then it can give certain half mark more for it. But don't put much of the time over it. Practice. You will get this habit of writing a good conclusion. So even these kind of the events that have happened in the last, say, couple of years, the Indian African Forum Summit, right, visit of our head of the state, our president, vice president, PM visit, and now this visit. So it keeps African news in Indian media, right? And this is also a way, it also helps to generate awareness among the people that showcase the importance of Africa. So more these kind of engagements keeps on happening, so more media publishes. So role of media is also important in generating awareness, education, educating the people. So you've seen in the initial part there were only a few gateways to Africa. We had few. Our central engagement part was South Africa, right? Then Nigeria. Now we are having engagements with many more countries. You remember the name of countries which are in the news, of which India is having the engagements, like these Kenya, Tanzania, Nigeria, Ghana, right? Mozambique, all these countries. Remember them. In the same way you could write, because the question also asks country specifically. Name of countries are highly important while attempting these kind of questions. Then one thing is another important thing about India Africa. African nations, African countries, they are also passing through, or they are also moving towards democracy. Now, democracy is coming in many more countries now, but they're in the initial phase. In many countries are in the initial phase of democracy there. So India can be role model. India is the largest democracy, and as a democracy, we have strengthened ourselves in the past so many years. And as a time and again, we have shown to the world this thing. Right? Our constitution is highly inclusive. Right? Now, many of the countries, they are facing the problem of constitution which is not inclusive to minorities. For example, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, many things are happening all across the world. Right? But India, so as India can be a role model for democracy, practicing democracy, how it should be. The same thing could be, you can say, lesson could be taken from India to the African countries. So this kind of cooperation can also help. And South-South cooperation, you can talk. In fighting terrorism, in the strategic interest, our strategy in the past couple of years after this government, we have signed so many strategic agreements, in which in a way has declined the essence of the strategic agreements as well. You might have seen that with every other country we are signing the strategic agreement. Yes. So, well, it depends upon with what benefits we take out from this in implementation part, till what level they actually come out to be. But on many front in the counter-terrorism operations, in providing security in the Indian Ocean region, there we are definitely trying to improve our relations with these countries in joint operations. So, which terrorist organizations are working in Africa? Yes, Boko Haram. Where is it? Basically, in which part of Africa? Correct.
Yes.
Where? Nigeria part, this part, Nigerians somewhat above it. Sorry? Yes. Nigeria, then Burkina Faso, Mali, this area around, they remain. What other terrorist organizations? Very good. Al-Shabaab, where? Yes, good. In the Libya part, Libya. Even their attacks are in Kenya as well. Whenever in Kenya the attacks happen, then it is linked to Al-Shabaab. Okay, what other terrorist organization in the world? Yes.
IAS.
Yes, you start with IAS definitely. Because the questions are being asked in the internal security part. Terrorism, yeah, they asked competitive industry. Terrorism being emerged as a competitive industry. So you can't write it unless you have the name of different terrorist organization and where they are operating and how they are operating. Yes, what's your question?
Taliban can be called as
Yes, you can quote it.
So now US and China both how can we answer that type of question?
What kind of question?
Means this time they asked
Competitive.
So मतलब conclude क्या दें?
What do you mean by competitive industry? पहले आप इसको देखिए. अगर आप इसको समझ गए ना, you will be able to answer the question.
एक के बाद एक terrorist organization emerge हो रहे हैं काम होने की बजाय.
Now see,
ranking among the
competitive industry you could see in different ways. One way is how the private industries are competitive. One thing is they use the resources optimally and give the maximum output with the least cost. ये होता है competition. मतलब competitive industry का basic formula क्या है? Means it has to be most productive. Secondly, competitive among different industries. One industry with the other industry. Now replicate this model in this format.
So what will be the solution? How can we analyze and reduce this?
वो तो फिर बात की बात है और इसमें solution भी इतना लिखना भी नहीं है. This doesn't demand actually this question. Even if you want to write one paragraph only in the end. But basically this question demanded how they are emerging as competitive industry. How competitive industry, you see, uh, how different terrorist organizations are trying to set themselves different from other by intensifying their atrocities. See the IS atrocities in comparison to Al Qaeda. Why they have resorted to this? Because they wanted to set themselves apart from Al Qaeda. We are better than Al Qaeda. Yes, in their sense, better means what? More cruelty. Right now, they are also administering a area as well, territory as well. It has never happened that a huge territory being administered by a terrorist organization. Terrorist organization generally they hold a very small territory or where they just keep self in the height. Generally, it happens so. But see the huge amount of territory being administered as well. The administration also done by IS there. So they're competing among each other. Boko Haram, they also try to set themselves different, isn't it? So one thing is you show competition among themselves. Then you show competition how competitive they are by using the resources and giving the maximum output. According to their output is the destruction, isn't it? Now how they recruit the people through social media.
How they attract.
They are using, yes, they're radicalizing the youth with what ideology they are radicalizing. Now recruitment is a very basic premises as a tool to increase the output for this industry.
Whatever in Turkey, that Russian ambassador was killed. So that is also counted in
Sorry.
terrorism.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. So examples can be many. You just need to catch the essence of the question. एक बार आप लोगों ने समझ लिया कि हाँ what the question is, then there can be many examples. Okay, what other terrorist organization in the world? In West Asia, IS. What else? Al Qaeda.
Al-Qaeda in Yemen.
Al Qaeda in Arabian Peninsula. That is called AQAP. That is in Yemen, southern part of Yemen. That is Al Qaeda in Arabian Peninsula. Jamaatul Nusra, Jamaatul Nusra in Syria and certain part of that. Lashkar-e-Taiba. in terms of India, you could say that in West Asia, if we look at, then Lebanon is one. Do you remember?
Lebanon, yes.
What is that? In Yemen is what? Yemen में कौन सा है? Al-Qaeda in Arabian Peninsula. In Somalia कौन सा है? Somalia, Kenya.
Boko Haram.
Al-Shabaab Somalia में भी आपका. In Lebanon, Hezbollah in Lebanon. Then if you see in Afghanistan, Taliban. Then Pakistan, TTP, Tehreek-e-Taliban in Pakistan. So there are many of the terrorist organizations. Then in northern part in Mali and all, Al-Qaeda in Islamic Maghreb, AQIM. Al-Qaeda in Islamic Maghreb. Anyways, we come to next topic. What is next topic? Huh? PT question. Okay, these are factual questions. You get the answer. What is correct? That is correct. इसमें कुछ बहुत analysis का requirement है नहीं. come to the handouts. Next topic, what is the topic name?
SC honors audit.
We first do the articles only. These are small news items. We'll discuss in the end.
India's
India's?
India's current foreign policy.
Yes, we discuss India's foreign policy. Well, we have seen certain changes after this government has taken power in the Indian foreign policy. Certain continuity, certain changes as well. And in what way this foreign policy of India is? It's a broad-based topic, right? It's not a country-specific topic. It is. So you need to have overall understanding of India's foreign policy with the different nations and as a whole together as well. The question has not been asked in this way as a overall Indian foreign policy, but we should be prepared to answer these kind of questions. So what kind of changes or what kind of things you have found in Indian foreign policy?
India is coming more closer to America and going fast.
So you will see how India's engagement with the world powers. US, Russia, China. So how India is engaged or has engagement with US, with Russia, with China. So India has increased its engagement, economic, defense, strategic engagements with the US. And even sometimes it is seen that it's moving too much towards US. So this is one change in the stance that has been seen in the past. As we've signed so many cooperation agreements, economic cooperation, defense cooperation, LEMOA we have signed, logistic movements, right? We signed civil nuclear deal with US. India-US joint, Obama came on the Republic Day parade as chief guest last year. 2 years ago, right? Yes.
14.
So our same interest in the South China Sea. On the world level, we are having the same joint statements on the terrorism front, on the strategic fronts, on the economic front. And this is despite our current Prime Minister, though he was not given visa during the when he was Chief Minister of Gujarat. So it was skeptical, it was apprehensive that after becoming Prime Minister, how our country's stance would be towards America, but it has been very much favorable for the two countries. Kind of the rapporteur our PM has made with US counterparts. And as been seen, our Prime Minister has pursued foreign policy very aggressively. In the means, say, very proactively. And it has not been seen so in our previous leaders. Right? More of it was the task of foreign minister, but now it is our PM which is actually shaping our foreign policy. You could see the number of visits our PM has made in the last couple of years. And just when he moves out on tour, he take a couple of countries in the same go 1 day, 2 day, and just say it. Let's go to US. We have improved our engagements, but what are various issues? We talk about issue India US issue, visa issue, major issues, visa issue, H1B, L1 visa issue. Yes. What else?
Services in WTO.
There are certain WTO issues. Yes.
Strategic ties.
One is solar mission regarding
Yes.
domestic procurement laws. What else? The IPR issues in pharma.
And poultry.
Yes.
And poultry.
Sorry.
And poultry. Ban on poultry.
Poultry. Yes. What else?
Petra.
These are a couple of issues in Indian US when don't have fertilization agreement. They are still looking for this fertilization agreement. Then there are certain issues in civil nuclear liability. Right. Even despite the civil nuclear deal between India and US, the investment has not been materialized because there are certain issues linked to liability in case of any damage, nuclear damage. So what is the act? The act that we have is CLNDA. Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage Act. Russia. India-Russian relations, these had been historic in the past. We had very strong ties with Russia, defense, strategic, economic as well. Defense ties had been very deep-rooted with Russia. Right. But in the past, it has been seen India had moved too much towards US. It was so, but still, when Putin came, we signed certain defense agreement with Russia, right? Sorry.
Heart of Russia support also there, where Russia has supported India against terrorism, and his stand was against Pakistan for that.
Yes, Russia supported India's entry into SCO, Shanghai Cooperation. So there are many areas of cooperation still. So it means what it is a very dicey, tricky role for any of the country to have a balanced approach with all the three powers because they are polarized against each other, right? So India is playing in its best interest how its interests are best suited, in what way. But we have seen also Russia now also going closer to Pakistan.
Military exercise.
Right? Military exercise also now supporting CPEC now. Its statement came that has pulled up eyebrows of Indian diplomats.
He's supporting China on South China Sea.
Yes, on South. Russia, China, they have come closer to a very great extent. Not to Pakistan as well. No, Russia also supplying arms to Pakistan. US also supplying, giving aid to Pakistan as well as arms to Pakistan. The F-15 fighter planes. Because with China, there are many areas of concern, but there are many areas of cooperation as well. We have border issue, but still the kind of standoffs have reduced. Right, we have border issue on the Kashmir front, on the Arunachal Pradesh front as well. Right, a sky chain was taken by China. Sorry. Speak loudly.
China, Pakistan, economic corridor.
Yes, POK. Correct. So there are many areas of concern between India and China, but there are many areas of cooperation as well. What I mean to say, these concerns, they have not pulled back our relations. They haven't stopped India-China relations going forward. Though there are border issues, but there are high-level talks as well between India and China to resolve those issues. Now we don't find much of the standoffs. Why? Because there are proper procedures have been established whenever standoff happens. What are the procedures to handle the issue? Because earlier when standoff happened, that had created many of the concerns.
Also, China doesn't support India's entry to NSG.
Yes, I'm coming to all those points. What are in your mind? So just area of concern. If you see, area of concern. One, if you say in terms of economy, the trade front, huge trade deficit. Around $70 billion is a trade between India and China. Out of this, $52 billion is a trade deficit. Dumping. अरे समझ तो लो, एक पॉइंट समझो पहले, इसका अपना इंपॉर्टेंस है. डंपिंग कौन कह रहा है? पहले इस पॉइंट को याद करो. always remember, first understand the point that is in discussion and remember those. ठीक है, don't try to jump to the next. उससे क्या होता है, आप इस पॉइंट को समझ नहीं पाएंगे, you won't be able to understand the gravity of this point. क्या समझाना है? $70 billion का ट्रेड है. आउट ऑफ $70 billion ट्रेड, $52 billion इज अ डेफिसिट. यानी कितना एक्सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं हम चाइना को? केवल $18 billion. So one way is you write just in vaguely just huge trade deficit, but it should be backed by the adequate data. Then only your argument is authenticate. On the economic front, trade है, dumping वगैरह, other issues are there, you could bring those. Then on South China Sea as well, on the strategic front, South China Sea issue, India has made it clear its stand that we are in the pursuance of freedom of navigation and overflight. Okay, India is in favor of unimpeded access to trade, but still we haven't taken so aggressively against China. Just in the favor that China would favor us in energy, right? But that is not happening there. China is again and again putting blockade in front of India. India's entry into energy. Also putting block to the Masood Azhar being designated international terrorist. So there are many areas of concern these showcase. But despite these areas of concern, India-China engagement keeps on going on. In AIP, NDP, BRICS, economic trade engagements, and many more areas of cooperation are there between India and China, despite the area of concern. It shows there is no zero-sum game. It has to be there. There are two countries, different interests. There has to be clash of interest. But this clash of interest should not stop the areas of cooperation to be accentuated. CPC corridor, China, Pakistan, same thing. Oh, many of the points you could write. Okay, the CPC corridor. What's your name? Kabir, बताइए CPC corridor.
This $46 billion investment from China side to Pakistan to connect the Western Asia and the European countries, and it will connect Kashgar to
Gwadar. Very good. So it will connect Gwadar to Kashgar. Right. Kashgar is where? In Xinjiang province of China. Right. So very important corridor for China. Part of One Belt, OBOR, part of this Chinese policy. Significance of CPEC, बताइए. Significance of CPEC for China.
Connectivity to the whole Central Asia and West Asia. Apart from operating trade and apart from maritime trade, defense.
Okay. One by one point. Yes. You justify your point. How is it?
Because they are connecting Gwadar to a road link to countries in West Asia apart from Pakistan.
Sorry?
They are, first of all, it will reduce the maritime nauticals from Beijing to Pakistan
Very good.
by huge proportions.
This is the most important point. Are you able to appreciate this point? Because earlier the trade had been from Malacca Strait, South China Sea, then to say eastern coast of China. Okay. Now it means the distance of trade has been reduced to a huge extent. Secondly,
strategically it is important to Central India.
sorry.
Strategically important to Central India.
Yes, you could say. What else? As part of Singapore. Singapore was asked in one of the mains.
Even with Pakistan for docking of those submarines, defense-wise.
तो इसी में आ जाएगा सर आपका against India how it is used. You cannot create multiple points of same person. You understand my question? How CPC is significant to China?
Influence over Indian Ocean.
Sorry?
Indian Ocean.
What Indian Ocean?
Influence. Their influence.
Yes, sorry. Influence. Yes, good point.
I think
China wants to increase influence in Indian Ocean region as well, right? But China claims or want to be a blue water navy. Now, for a blue water navy, it has to have influence in all the oceans. The third point, Indian Ocean. Fourth, one part was trying to say the connectivity front, right? This part of this OBOR, a very broad-based product is OBOR. So CPC is part of that. So that will help in enhancing the connectivity with other routes of OBOR. Well, OBOR won't directly provide connectivity to Central Asia, but CPC won't provide direct connectivity to Central Asia, but if it is still in part of the OBOR, then it is enhancing the connectivity to the various other regions. Now, if you see one of the points that it reduced the trade distance. Another point is strategically important is that China is trying to find alternative routes to Malacca Strait. Because the Malacca Strait is dominated by US. In case of any of the severe clash between China and US, it could block the trade of China to the Gulf countries and other African countries. And from where the energy would come?
Why US influence?
Sorry?
Why the influence of US?
Yes, Singapore and other countries, they had the base there. US influence over Malacca, it dominates that strait region.
It may block the.
It could give fear, right?
How can it be possible?
Sorry?
How can it be possible?
Possible could. When you don't expect a president to get elected, then anything could happen. Now, what my point is, we are sitting in a class, we're discussing this thing, how Chinese authority would have been looking over it. They would see China, US clash in a different way. And they know that their huge interests are at stake. And definitely they would invest a lot in finding alternative to that route that could block their whole trade, in fact. It's energy dependent country China is. It's most of the oil come from the Gulf nations. And now from Russia as well, after this China-Russia $500 billion deal they have signed. Then another point could be that you see China's western part is underdeveloped. The developed regions of China are where? On the eastern coast, eastern part. All the major cities are on the eastern coast. But this western part is underdeveloped. And also whenever you see the violence, the terrorism and all, this is the region. Western part. Uyghur Muslims community there across Central Asia and China, this one. So it wants to develop its underdeveloped region. So whenever you bring connectivity, road and corridors, it ultimately spurs the development. So for equitable development as well as to curb terrorism there. So these could have been the various significance of CPC for China. And how CPC is important for India? In negatives, you know definitely how CPC could be seen in a positive way. Whenever the question comes, discuss significance of CPC with respect to India. So don't write just negatives only, right? What I mean to say, whenever you write, then write positives as well. दोनों चीजें लिखना है. Positives क्या हो सकते हैं?
It can provide employment to the unemployed. Kashmiri youths. It will reduce terrorism.
Very good point. Whenever people they get meaningful employment, it checks their intent, it checks their temptation to come into terrorism. Right? So very good point it is. And it is India's interest only Pakistan flourished. It is India's interest Pakistan remains stable. Terrorism gets reduced in Pakistan.
Then why we are opposing from head and foot to this CPC?
Because we are concerned about the very strategic interest. What is China's intention? Passes through POK, then that actually legitimizes POK to be part of Pakistan. Wherever we claim POK. Anyways, we could divert it from our main topic. We just come back to it. So the first point was how India is approaching the world powers. This was part of our sudden changes in our foreign policy. Secondly, you could see India's approach towards Central Asia. This had been a neglected region before. Now there has been increased push towards this Central Asian region as well. Regarding the Ashgabat agreement, right? What is Ashgabat?
It's a place in Turkey.
Turkey.
No.
Great.
In Iran, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan.
Yes. Rohit, look our map again and again. ठीक है, फिर से देखना अच्छे से. What's its importance?
North-south corridor.
Yes, it provides connectivity from Central Asia to Persian Gulf. So it can be part of the North-South corridor, international North-South corridor. So now India, our Prime Minister visited to various nations, Central Asia. We became part of the SCO as well, right? To Mongolia as well, our Prime Minister went, if you remember. So increased push to Central Asia. Why Central Asia is important? Energy security, because energy rich region this is Central Asia. Moreover, it can also yes. So all the minerals, energy, all these resources you could write. Then from the strategic aspect to curb terrorism in the region as part of SCO, because SCO work is also in the same lines. Then to increase its influence in Afghanistan, to bring stability in Afghanistan region, because Afghanistan is a highly important region for India. Then also it could counter string of pearls of China as well. If India starts encircling China by increasing its influence in the neighborhood of China, it could also act as a counter to string of pearls. Yes, Sushil, समझ रहे हो क्या कह रहे हैं? क्या समझे बताइए? How Central Asia is important to India? अमित बताइए. तो क्या मतलब? How do you explain this? Try to explain the way you will write in the exam. अगर आप समझा नहीं पाए वहाँ पर तो कोई फायदा नहीं होगा. Yes, in the last. What's your name? Sorry? बताइए. हाँ? What? हाँ? I'm saying about Central Asia. How Central Asia is important to India?
Actually, there are huge population. Huge population
Hmm.
keeps on increasing. So we are energy dependent. Energy dependency is also increasing. There we find a lot of uranium, oil. There are a lot of things. So we can use
Yes,
them.
good point. Yes.
And it is also terrorism related area. Most of the time we find people are exploited because of this.
Unstable
So,
region, yes.
By creating stable, we can ensure our
Yes.
security.
Very good. What else? It can be part of our this INST international north-south corridor as well, connectivity. ठीक है. Fourth point, bring Afghanistan into concern. It can help to increase India's influence in Afghanistan and bring stability there. Fifth, to counter string of pearls of China. Now this string of pearls is not the main argument, so put this point somewhere in the last. Now this is the way how do we encircle China. भाई वो कैसे कर रहा है string of pearls? They are building the ports across around India and encircling India. Now the same way India could also do encircle China by having influence in its neighborhood. So we'll come the same way. Third, East Asia. What is the shift in India's foreign policy in East Asia? So from the look east we have moved towards act east. You can write a lot. I'm sure you are able to understand this point. When separately comes, then we'll discuss in detail. समझ रहे हो क्या है? Because look east now act east with the more vigor we are following not only the economic, strategic as well, and also expanding our areas. To Australia, we included New Zealand, Fiji. We have moved to the Pacific Island countries as well in the same act east policy.
So what is the difference between?
Sorry, look east had been followed by the previous government. Now this government, just to give a new vigor, new energy to the policy, it has been renamed as act east. And now we look over more, you can see in a more comprehensive way, not limiting ourselves to the economic cooperation only, but strategic as well. Now India is selling the defense weapons to Vietnam. We have signed a deal with Vietnam.
China.
Sorry?
China.
Definitely China first. In West Asia, you see how in West Asia, there are Iran bloc and Saudi bloc, divided in the sectarian lines. Shia-Sunni conflict. Okay. Saudi Sunni country, Iran Shia country. Sectarian conflict is there, and it becomes very difficult for any of the country to have a balanced relation with both of the blocs. And India is doing that, and is trying to do that. So it can be a point in India's foreign policy. In the past, we had seen that India's engagement was more with Iran than Saudi bloc. In the recent past, in the last couple of years, we see with the bilateral cooperation agreements, with the strategic agreements with so many Saudi bloc countries. Our PM visited Saudi, our Foreign Minister visited Saudi, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE in the last couple of years, if you see. In West Asia, then there is another Israel-Palestine. In the earlier time, we had been openly supporting Palestine cause and neglecting our interest with Israel. But in the recent past, in the past couple of years, our engagements with Israel has increased. And they have increased in the best suited interest for India. Our engagements in the defense, agriculture, in the water management. Definitely on the terrorism, on the cyber security, these are, because there are many more components as well, those remains part of that. So, but we haven't left Palestine cause as well. We still support Palestine cause, but we are having the higher level of talks or higher engagement with Israel. We are trying to balance again our relation here with Israeli policy. Earlier it wasn't. Earlier it was more to support the Palestine cause rather than having a certain benefit, certain engagement with Israel. Last year, President visited both of the countries in the same go, Palestine and Israel. And even recently, this ambassador has appreciated India's stand in the UN. Whenever resolution comes,
India abstains.
India abstains that, and this is seen as a positive move. from Israel. Pehle, India had been voting against Israel, right? But now India abstains. So even abstaining from the voting is a positive, seen as a positive move from Israeli front. Same way we discussed Africa, already discussed Africa in detail. How India's foreign policy has been with respect to Africa. These are major reasons. So whenever question comes as a broad-based question, don't write minor points. Try to analyze in a broad-based manner as well. So try to make different parts of the question. Say world powers, how India is dealing with world powers now, how with Central Asia. Just one paragraph or one point. We discussed a lot in first part, but it doesn't mean you need to write all these because 12.5 mark question you have limited space, limited time. तो एक ही पॉइंट में लिखना है इसको अगर एक क्वेश्चन इफ इट इज इंडियाज फॉरेन पॉलिसी देन सेंट्रल एशिया ईस्ट एशिया वेस्ट एशिया अफ्रीका what other things you can mention you could talk about neighborhood policy neighborhood first policy it is just after our PM after this new government first visit of our PM to Bhutan. So focus was on our neighbors and the initiative was Bharat to Bhutan. We invited, our Prime Minister invited Nawaz Sharif as well on its ceremony. Right? And many more engagements had been between India and Pakistan and even on the personal front between the Prime Minister of two nations. But issues had been there, so they had been in limbo for a while. But it shows India's push towards its neighbors, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh. We have resolved this issue with Bangladesh land boundary agreement. A 1971 pending issue it had been during the time of Indira Gandhi. Now, after so many years, now it shows the focus of our country, our foreign policy. Then you can also talk about role of states in foreign policy. Very important point. How may find the state's role is also there in foreign policy. West Bengal with respect to Bangladesh, right? Tamil Nadu, Sri Lanka, right? Even when certain foreign visit happens, now CM of these states are taken along with. For example, even Andhra Pradesh CM was taken to visit to China when our PM visited China. Why? To attract investment, right? Sorry.
They are building a new capital.
Yes. So this it shows how, and even now when these Chinese visit to India, then these state CMs were invited to participate in the meeting. It shows what? It shows their involvement in the foreign policy. So this cooperative federalism is taken to the next level. It doesn't limit itself just cooperation between center state in the domestic policy, but also to the foreign policy. There can be many other points, but these are quite unique points, or that shows how our foreign policy has been different from past, or how they have been in continuity. Continuity is still there. Differences are also there. So if you supposed to write, then you write both continuity as well as different, because it is not totally altogether new foreign policy. Right? There are continuities and there are differences as well. We also find now India's enhanced role in climate justice on environmental front, on the various agreements. We find more focus to the Indian diaspora. Whenever our PM visit, Indian diaspora is specially addressed to attract investment. More use of soft power. So these are various dimensions of India's current foreign policy. Moreover, you would also find India's enhanced engagement as being proactive partner, proactive engagements in the world organizations as well. Because when you talk about foreign policy, it doesn't limit itself at the bilateral level. Multilateral organizations as well, at the UN, right? India's entry to MTCR, our push for UNSC reform, push for NSG. So how India is looking over at these multilateral organizations.
Also, India has drafted some terror bill in the UN.
Sorry.
Related to
CCID.
Convention.
Convention to Counter International Terrorism. So it's a resolution.
1996.
Resolution UN drafted by India. So India is pushing for the CCID, but many countries are opposing it, so it has not been accepted. And India's stance on terrorism. So India is against any kind of terrorism, any color, any kind of terrorism. India is against state-sponsored or not state-sponsored, every kind. But because certain issues linked to Pakistan, to China, they oppose these kind of resolutions. But recently it has been seen that China has blocked its borders with Pakistan. Why? Because again, to curb terrorism, it was fearful of having high terrorism in the Xinjiang province region, right? It's a disturbed area of China. So even see, terrorism, it has negative impacts whether you have friendship with it or not. It has been seen how it has backfired US many times. First Taliban, then even this IAS, it has been seen a creation of US only, because it emerged from the rebels that were opposing the Bashar al-Assad government. Now, United States was supporting these rebels in the arms, in the ammunition, in the finances to outthrow Bashar al-Assad. But when these they emerged from the same as a segment. So the same way China, if it is supporting Pakistan on the many of the fronts, it is also apprehensive about it. That won't this terrorism would affect me back. So these things comes into play. Anyways, that's all about this article. Now come to next topic. Name the topic. We discuss the article, then in the last we discuss certain news items. What is that?
Right wing or
Okay, it's a transgender issue. A draft bill was approved by the cabinet. Transgenders Person Protection of Rights Bill 2016. Now discuss how this article discuss how this bill is not right based. Yes, the earlier bills of 2014 and 15 they were more right based approach, and how this is not able to fulfill those rights. That should be seen in the light of Nalsa case. Nalsa judgment. What is Nalsa judgment?
it gave the transgenders right to identify themselves.
Yes, correct. So, Nalsa judgment of Supreme Court, it gave the transgenders right to identify themselves as a third gender. So, in fact, it gave them identity. So, Supreme Court rejected the binary proposition of sex, male and female. It gave a okay, fine, third gender is also. So, what is the significance of this? So, giving them right to recognize their sexual identity. is highly essential. It is giving them recognition, in fact, what they are. It's highly essential for a dignified life. To realize Article 21, right to equality, Article 14 as well. Now, because earlier they were not able to identify themselves according to their sexual orientation. But now, because this recognition, in the lack of this recognition earlier, they're being discriminated at different public places, different interaction in the society, in the institutions as well. Social stigma attached to it, to the transgenders, right? So Supreme Court said they are to be recognized as third gender. So it gives them right to equality, right to life, in fact dignified life, and gives them and recognize them as socially and educationally backward classes. So giving them right to reservation as well as OBC in employment as well as in educational institutions. Now this article discusses how this bill is not in the right based approach. So first it discusses about certain problems, issues with transgenders, what kind of the issues faced by transgenders. Social exclusion and discrimination, lack of adequate education. Now employers actually they don't find employment as well. Now at various levels they face discrimination. At society's level, they are not felt part of the society. They are felt as in fact they are made to feel as being excluded from the society. So even when they go to school, they drop out. Why? Because of torture or any kind of the lack of integration in the class. Thirdly, when they drop out, they don't have the enough education background to get the employment. Even if they have it, the employers they resist to give employment. So from there also exploitation, harassment. And when transgenders people, they are very, so it means they are dejected from everywhere, from society, from their family as well, right? So they are forced to live in the hijra community that is being called, right, to a separate community. So it means they are rejected from everywhere, from their family, from society, from employment, everywhere. So it forces them to indulge in begging and sexual offense activities as well. So it not only discriminates them with the opportunities, but also it really endangers right to have a quality life. It threatens their Article 21. And when any of the case reaches to police, for example, because Section 377 is still in the law books. Because Section 377 is not directly linked to transgenders. First of all, you need to differentiate between in LGBT community and transgenders as a separate. This Nalsa case was with regard to transgenders. It had nothing to do with LGBT community. Section 377 deals with LGBT community, lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgenders. What Section 377 is?
Same-sex marriages are illegal.
Sorry?
Same-sex marriage is illegal.
It actually defines in the way that it says that any kind of sexual intercourse against the order of nature is criminalized. And according to it, the order of nature, the sexual intercourse in the order of nature is the penile vaginal intercourse. That's it. Any other kind of it is criminalized. That will be crime as per Section 377. So in Nas Foundation case, Delhi High Court abrogated Section 377, or you can say decriminalized this offense. समझ में आ रहा है क्या बात करें? Section 377 criminalizes these kind of sexual intercourse against order of nature. But Nas Foundation case in Delhi High Court decriminalizes that. क्या हुआ जी?
सर वो थोड़ा सा कंफ्यूज हो गया.
देखो सेक्शन 377 criminalizes. ये कहता है criminal activity है. Nas Foundation case Delhi High Court said no, it is not a criminal activity. ठीक clear है यहाँ से. But then it was challenged in the Supreme Court. Supreme Court in Kaushal case. Supreme Court in Kaushal case upheld the constitutionality of section 377. It means it recriminalized again the sexual intercourse against the order of nature. So this is the current status. फिलहाल यहाँ पर ही है. Okay, if you ask whether the cases to be remembered or not, yes, definitely they should be remembered. ठीक है? It's not only about understanding. You develop the understanding, but your main aim is to get into civil services, to be an IAS in top 100, right? So you have to fetch more marks. Your arguments, cases behind them.
Yes.
These have to be there. There is no other way. तो याद करने पड़ेंगे. तो whatever you feel like. Right. Then how this section 377 is linked to transgenders? Not directly. Directly linked me, but how? Because even in Nalsa case, Supreme Court gave recognition to transgenders as a third gender. ठीक है यहाँ पर. But when they recognize themselves as a third gender, then how do they marry? How do they do sexual intercourse? Because still section 377 criminalizes that. Got the idea how they come in conflict with each other. So this is one of the basic issue. Still the laws are not in coherence with the court orders as well as with the other laws. Even this succession, marriage, adoption, these are based on what? On the sex, male or female. Still, so these laws are not in coherence, so they have to be amended to give adequate space to transgenders. First, this issue is this issue clear on, because many times people they get confused between section 377 and say transgender rights issue. How they are linked to each other, how these rights are violated. So they have fear of harassment from police authorities, from the various agencies, from society, from employer, from everywhere. So they are dejected by every part of the society. So what should be done? Okay, we discuss certain other issues linked to them first. So the NALSA judgment, it talked about Transgender Welfare Board. It in fact first, after NALSA ruling, central government gave direction to the state governments to implement certain steps. Like certain grants, central grant was given to transgender children, parents of the transgender children, so that they don't feel themselves burdened, they don't feel the children to be burdened, and they keep them sending to schools. Right, so certain grant was to be given, central grant. Then scholarship, education, skill development, all these directions were given by the central government to the states with respect to the transgenders after NALSA judgment. So there is a provision of Transgenders Welfare Board. Certain issues with this board as well. Now we discuss about limitation of the bill. The limitation of the bill, it says that the transgender definition is not as broad as it was in 2014 and 15 bill. Then another limitation this article discuss about the right-based approach, rights of the people, rights of the transgenders. It says, though in the definition it says rights brings, but actually the intent is not the right-based. The content is not the right-based of this bill. So though in the Constitution, the Article 14, 19, 21, they provide rights to each and everybody. So these rights are available to the transgenders as well. Why? Because now they are part and parcel of society. They're being recognized as a third gender. So right to equality, right to have a dignified life as per Article 21. Even then it says that the other government laws like disability law, recently the government has passed, rights of disabled person, and mental health care bill. These are right-based bills, but we are not seeing them in line with that. Then discuss about the impact of operation of existing laws. They comes in conflict with Succession Act, Marriage Act, Adoption Act. Various acts they are in conflict. Moreover, the NALSA judgment that recognizes the civil rights to be accessible to transgender person, but these have not been part explicitly of this bill. ठीक है, नालसा जजमेंट में बात करते हैं civil rights to the transgenders, but these have not been incorporated into the bill. Then the last point, section 377, we have discussed this part already. So this is the issue of transgenders' right. What should be done? The bill should be more right-based. Definitely, you could give the argument. But then, larger question is to change the mindset again. So never miss the core of the solution. Core of the solution is not just the bill. Bill is only a legislative exercise to give them rights. भाई bill क्यों लाना पड़ा? Rights नहीं मिल रहे थे उनको. Why these were not to the people? Because of societal mindset. So never miss the core of the answer that has to be addressed. कैसे करना है? Again same those 5-6 general points. How to change the mindset. देखा आज सुबह से हमने 4-5 टॉपिक डिस्कस किए हैं. इन 3 टॉपिक्स चेंज द माइंडसेट की बात आ रही है और पॉइंट सेम है, कॉमन पॉइंट्स हैं इनको. दिस शुड बी नो टिप्स. So NGO civil society participation, which NGO? Which NGO for transgenders? अरे नाज फाउंडेशन की बात कर रहे हैं यहाँ पर. ये क्या है? केस का नाम ही आपका नाज फाउंडेशन है, तो हाउ कैन यू मिस दिस? Along with changing mindset, counseling should also be brought into counseling process, because many times the people, they're not sure with their sexual identity, so they need a proper counseling that could help them to identify their sexual orientation. So that is also a very eminent part of these, to handle these kind of cases. Okay, that's all for this topic. Now come to the next, study another news items. Quickly do them. Speak loudly. NGOs. Okay. All these are in our notes. Okay. All these part of our OneNote notes preparation. So you can go to the section. You'll get the you'll get all these notes automatically updated in your OneNote notes that we prepare. Sorry. Polity and governance section. NGO civil society is a page in our OneNote. You can access it. We will share with you people. You can access it from your laptop, from your mobile phone, anywhere. You can have all the notes at one go in the single page. All NGOs on single page, around 5-6 articles on the transgenders and section 377. So बहुत जरूरी है कि आज का आर्टिकल और 2 साल पहले आया हुआ आर्टिकल on the transgender should get same place. then only the maximum benefit of this. So here on our this application, find the same topic linked to each other on the same page. Okay, this is only news item. Okay, what actually is it? Supreme Court orders audit of 30 lakh NGOs. Okay, the NGOs which receive public funds, those should be audited as per Supreme Court order, and to initiate civil recovery proceedings as well. Moreover, to launch the criminal proceedings also in case of any mishap or misappropriation is found. Moreover, to frame guidelines to accreditation of NGOs and how to maintain their accounts. These are duty of the government to frame the guidelines. So what is the significance of this judgment? Because till now the government role has been to blacklisting the NGOs, but now the role is to audit as well. Audit the funds of NGOs which are publicly funded, to frame guidelines how they will maintain their own accounts and all, their accreditation as well, all these things. It won't be asked directly, definitely, but how this news is important. It's important to be used as an example somewhere. Example if question comes regarding civil society NGOs, because a prominent question it remains. Okay. Then there's a way how to hold NGOs accountable. How to bring transparency. It's a way to bring transparency in the NGOs function, because we had seen there are many NGOs which work on this for the vested interest. Right. On one side, NGO they have very important, very eminent role for a vibrant democracy. But on the other side, certain NGOs are working for the vested interest. Now, how to counter this problem? This is one of the solution or one of the example you can quote as an order by the Supreme Court. And there was one of the case study as well this year means. The same case study, you can say the same example could be quoted if this verdict had come before. The case study was the same. There are certain NGOs which work on the vested interest, but there are many NGOs which work for the welfare of people. Like, so whenever any NGO starts working, it finds difficulty in the functioning from the government interface. So this kind of case study was there. Read that, attempt that. समझ में आ रहा है? कहाँ यूज करना है इसका डायरेक्टली नहीं आएगा क्वेश्चन ये. It has to be used somewhere. You read this box given there. Yes, Ravi. Yes. ये box पढ़िए क्या लिखा है इसमें? Reining them in.
Supreme Court backs Madras High Court order. Supreme Court orders audit of 30 lakh NGOs. The General Financial Rules 2005 mandate regulatory mechanisms for NGOs and voluntary organizations. The Supreme Court has pulled up the center for not putting in place checks and balances.
Read next. Of 30 lakh NGOs registered under the Societies Registration Act, in India only 3 lakh file returns. See, only one-tenth of the NGOs registered, they file the returns. So these are certain facts you can quote, you can use while writing answers.
एनजीओ को रिटर्न फाइल करना,
क्या करें?
एनजीओ को भी टैक्स देना होता है.
नहीं, रिटर्न तो फाइल करना होता है ना उनको. Next, this is your money. You have no record of how they use it, because it's a public fund, right? So they're funded by the government, by the state, and even the state doesn't know how the spending or the expenditure of the NGOs are. So that's why they go for audit them, ask them to maintain the record in a particular clear manner, transparent fashion. What's another news? There only, I think, क्या नाम है इसका, पढ़िए जरा.
Supreme Court backs Madras High Court order question TN appointments.
Question Tamil Nadu appointments.
The entire appointment process of the 11 members was completed in a single shot in one day.
Okay, you will find this news in Polity and Governance section. Governance, Public Policy is the page. So read it. पढ़िए जरा.
January 31, 2016, 11 TNPSC members were appointed. Shortly after, red petitions were filed in the Madras High Court challenging these appointments. December 22, 2016. The Madras High Court requests their appointment. January 9, 2017. Supreme Court refuses to stay Madras High Court's order on December 32.
Read the side statement.
The manner in which the state used its prerogative to make the appointments was nothing but arbitrary, with no due deliberation of Supreme Court.
The entire appointment process of 11 members was completed in a single shot in a day. So it shows how discrepancies happened in the appointment process and how far-reaching repercussion they could have on the governance and the public policy and the implementation part as well. Because once the appointment process itself in a malpractice manner, they would have a huge impact on the government-citizen interface as well as the effective policy making and policy implementation. So it is a way as well, example to be quoted somewhere like this. It can also be used as judicial activism, right? There it can be quoted as an example. So there are many places. I have put this in governance, public policy, where there is a section in polity part, paper 2, where discuss about governance, administration and all. So there you can use it.
So how to access OneNote?
You have shared the notes with you, I think.
Sir, on the mobile phone is not working.
Must be working.
Signing laptop.
There might be some internet connectivity issue with your device. On your laptop or mobile phone across different devices, it would be easily accessible. How to use it? Okay. How many of you started using it? आपने use करना start किया? किया आपने? हाँ? Every how do we do it? We make the notes of every week. Okay, even before important articles, if they come, we keep on updating them. And once we share with your people, you get notification in your email that this section, this page has been updated. So you click on that, your application will open automatically and will bring you to that particular page which has been updated. Go to the last of that page, see what has been the new addition. Read that. After that, read the whole page. पूरा पेज पढ़ना है उसके बाद. Why? This is the way you revise and try to link that particular event with the whatever has happened before that, or other articles, other issues linked to that particular issue. So do it every time. The benefit, it will help you in the multiple revisions and better linkage. This exam is about having good understanding, certain facts to back your understanding, and creating more and more points that you can do so by having the better interlinkage. There are many issues which have the social dimension, political dimension, economic dimension, security dimension. Try to bring those. It will help to generate more and more points. But for that, you have a better interlinkage capacity, and that you will be able to develop once you read the articles in linkage to others rather than in isolation. अगर isolation पढ़ेंगे तो बस आपको article ही याद रहेगा. So use कैसे करना, you won't be able to apply that. This year, certain people, they said that this year paper 2 GS. Have you seen the GS paper 2 question paper this year, mains paper 2016 mains? So certain people, they said that it was not current affair based oriented. But my argument is it is still. Once you are reading the newspaper, the articles, the orientation should not be event based. If you go for only event based current affair, your understanding would be very narrow. वो अगर इवेंट आएगा तभी आप लिख पाएंगे, समझे? इस बार आई थिंक 3 to 4 क्वेश्चन वर ओनली इवेंट बेस्ड. दिस LG इश्यू, जम्मू कश्मीर इश्यू, एक दो इश्यू और थे जो कि विच वर सोलली इवेंट बेस्ड. बट व्हाट माय आर्गुमेंट इज, even all other question, from where do you get the understanding of those? From articles only. All those things remain in news. The article comes, there are issues of political parties also come in the articles, right? Issues of other transparency, democracy, administration, corruption, government citizen interface, everything comes in the newspapers. So need to have a broader understanding. एक होता है event based understanding, one is having a broader understanding. So you need to develop that broader understanding of all the different issues. Once you're able to do that, then you will be able to generate many points even if you haven't heard that news. समझ रहे हैं? 20 क्वेश्चन में से मे बी 5-6 क्वेश्चन आपने पढ़ रखे होंगे, at max 8 to 10. But for other question you have to generate points there and then only. वहीं आपको पॉइंट्स क्रिएट करने पड़ेंगे. कैसे पॉसिबल होगा? इंटरलिंकेज, ब्रॉडर अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ द डिफरेंट इश्यूज. नहीं तो बहुत ही आप अटेम्प्ट नहीं कर पाएंगे. बहुत ही एक, अगर अटेम्प्ट भी करेंगे then it would be very superficial attempt. चलो, that's all for the class.
Okay, so that's all for today's class. If you like this video, you hit like and subscribe to our channel as well.